Welcome to the Zarf Online Meetup for October 13th, 2022. My name is Jason Van Brackle. I'm a unicorn engineer with Defense Unicorns. You can hit me up on Slack, on Twitter, or on Twitch. Generally on Twitch, if you're a Twitch person, when I'm prepping stuff for like today's meeting, I'm doing it live on Twitch for anybody who just wants to see what's going on behind the scenes with the Zarf team, or see previews of features that aren't quite out yet. And if you want to get a hold of Defense Unicorns, where you can join the Kubernetes Slack, so this is CNCF Kubernetes Slack. We're on the Zarf channel, or on LinkedIn at Defense Unicorns, or on Twitter at Defense Unicorns. So today, we're going to talk about software bill of materials. I'll do an introduction, a high-level introduction to what is software bill of materials, how it fits into the software supply chain. I'll do a quick Zarf demo and how we support software bill of materials, and then Q&A. After the meetup, if you want to join us and gather for any additional questions or just hang out with the team. Also, if you come see me, I'll get your email address. I'll give you one of these really cool Zarf axolotl t-shirts. So if you're not familiar with an axolotl, it's a really cool animal that can actually regrow limbs and eyes. It's pretty awesome. So let's talk about software bill of materials, or SBOM. So your software bill of materials, this is your inventory of components used to construct a piece of software. It's used as part of the software supply chain to make sure that we have secure software supply chains and for software supply chain risk management. So a lot of you are probably familiar with the SolarWinds hack or the Log4j issue. This is part of the response so that we don't have things like that in the future. So SBOMs, they're formal. So there are many different formal dialects of SBOM. Multiple are supported by Zarf. They're machine readable and can be included for both open source and proprietary software. Software bill of materials is made up by a set of components. So you have software provenance, you have keys, signatures, and attestation. And we'll talk about each one of these. And what they are and how they fit into software supply chains. So let's start with this idea of SBOM and provenance. So provenance is all of the things that happen so that your software comes together. So in this example here, we have an Acme application version 1.1 that is known. We have other pieces of software that are included either whole or partially into our Acme application, done by different software developers in different shops, maybe upstream components. Most of our open source software, Zarf included, might look something like this. So Zarf, for example, we're using Sift, and we're using Cosine, we're using Viper, all these different open source materials to put together along with our own code, so the Zarf package. So how do we get this SBOM? So it starts with key pairs. Now, if you've used SSH, or if you have a CAC, you're probably really familiar with the concept of key pair. Key pair is a public key and a private key. That public key, you give out to the world. You can ship it with your software. You can put it on public databases so that people can verify your private key. So the private key, put in a super secure location. No one can get to it. Lots and lots of ways to do that. We're just talking in generalities today. So essentially, you're going to sign things with your private key, and people are going to verify your signature with a public key. So talking about signing. You can sign pretty much anything. You can sign binary artifacts, you can sign source code, you can sign container images, you can sign log files. The idea being we use this signature to verify, well, hopefully verify identity. We'll talk about that shortly. But let's actually talk a little bit more about signing, what that looks like in a software world. So here we have Alice, and Alice, as part of her build process, she has her key pair, and we see here we have her public key and her private key, and that private key is used along with the artifact that's created as part of her build process to sign, a cryptographic signature for that artifact, and then the public key and the artifact is sent to Bob, and Bob can verify the signature with his own tooling. And GitHub supports this out of the box. And if you go to the Zarf repo today, you can see here, for any commit that we have, we actually force signature as part of when we develop Zarf. So you can see here the verified sign is that verifies that somebody with my key, hopefully me, signed off they signed off on those Git commits. So, again, we can sign multiple things, our source code, our binaries, even our container images. So signature is great, but it only tells us so much. My slides are a little out of order. One sec. Okay, nope, we can do it in this order. So we can sign these artifacts, but really it only tells us that somebody signed it with my key, not intent, for example. Like, we need more than just the signing. Like what checks were performed, what quality gates were checked, what about CVEs, maybe test percentage, and what checks were done and when was it done. And this is where attestation comes in. So attestation is basically signing plus plus. You make verifiable claims about the software provenance. So how the software was developed, by whom, when those Git commits came in, what tests were running against the software, were CVE checks done, what tool checked the CVEs, when was it checked. These are all things that could go into claims about your software. So we can compare that to the signature. We have a signature like this, where we have Alice. Again, this is just reviewing what we talked about. So signature Alice uses the artifact, signs the private key, passes the public key in the artifact to Bob, and all Bob can do is verify that somebody with Alice's key signed against that artifact, and that the signature and the artifact match. We actually do that with like checksums on software today. You have your hash and your software, and you verify that the software matches the hash. Very similar to what we do with the signature here, except there's the public-private key offset. So attestation goes one step further. So in an attestation, we still have our key pair. We have a private key protected, we have a public key sent out. In addition to that signature against the artifact, we make different statements about what was done with the software. Again, CVE checks, quality checks, who did the software. All these things are verifiable because somebody can take that software bill of materials with all these attestations and then use a policy engine down the line and verify certain things. So we can even verify, like, we could have policy in the attestation that says, this software is allowed to be deployed, let's say in GKE, on this date and this time window, and that can actually be enforced by a policy engine. So the big picture might look something like this. So we have our source code repository. We fetch our software. That is then done by the build system. The build system creates your application artifacts and your provenance record. That provenance record has a set of, it has the attestation with a set of statements against a specific artifact and a bunch of claims about what was done to build that artifact. So that way, once we want to deploy that to production, we have a policy engine in place, and there are lots of those, that can evaluate the software bill of materials and make decisions whether to allow deployment, or can even be checked via like a policy controller to make sure that your software is always up to date with the policy. So let's talk about where Zarf is today with that via demo. And where Zarf is going in the future. So I'm going to open up my terminal window. So if you haven't already, we pushed a new release last night. So 0.22 is out. If you use brew to install it, you can just do a brew upgrade and get 22.0. Release notes aren't quite done there yet. Later this week, early next week, we'll have the release notes out, the new documentation out for new features, as well as I'll be doing a release video. So I'll walk through some of the new features of Zarf 0.22, and probably the next Zarf meetup in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, we'll walk through the new experimental UI for Zarf. So I believe I should already have it. Let me move this over to where you can see it. My terminal window, and we can see here we have a new version of Zarf. Oops, did I do that wrong? I think this is Zarf.version. Yep. All right, I have Zarf 22.0 here with some new features like some of the new caching, the experimental UI, which we don't pop up here because it's experimental. I'll do a little video on that later as far as how that's put together. But let's look at what we have for SBOM. So today, when you build a Zarf package, we pull in all of the OCI, all the OCI SBOM information available for the images we use. So tools like Cosign, for example, Sigstore Cosign, you can actually create, software bill of materials and push that out to OCI registries. And a lot of projects are doing that already. So Zarf will pull those in, as part of the package, and it will then, once the package is created, the TARZ standard file is created, that is also signed. So that is then signed with the SBOM included, with all the logs as part of the build, and that's pushed to OCI as well. So when you build the Zarf package and you deploy that package remotely, you have the full SBOM there. So if you have a downstream policy controller or policy engine running in your Kubernetes cluster, you can make decisions about the Zarf package there at runtime. So here we'll do a Zarf. If you go to Zarf tools and packages, there's a whole bunch of SBOM stuff in here. So I go to SBOM. And again, another open source piece of software under the covers, Anchor/Sift, doing the SBOM work for us. So if I do an SBOM against a specific let's say Alpine latest. Oh, what am I typing wrong? 1 second. Oh, did I forget? I got tools. It's probably SBOM packages. I probably have it backwards. I do. That's what I get for live demoing. And we see here, I did Zarf tools, SBOM packages, Alpine latest. So as far as downstream on your production infrastructure, you don't need to worry about Zarf and Anchor and proving all that out. We have that all bundled, basically a set of tools bundled that includes Sift, Anchor/Sift, to do this for you. So you can look at it like this. You could do it in another format. Let's see. Let's output that to SPDX, if I remember correctly. Yep. So there are multiple formats available for SBOM, including this. This is a JSON format. GitHub has a format. If you want to see all the available formats, let's go here. Packages and do a -- help for whatever tool you're using. So see here. Oh, did I do that wrong? I did do that wrong. It's not -- help. I think it's just help. Nope. There it is. Output. So you can see here. Output format. Sift JSON. Cyclone DX. You get the idea. Whatever tool you're using, if you were to go out to, I'm forgetting which government organization is tracking that. They have a great list of it. If you just do a search for software bill of materials or SBOM, it's like the first or second on Google that has it basically has a site with a document of all the current SBOM formats as of last year. So all of this, that's great. That can work for your build systems, but what about your users? A nice, easy way of looking at it. I'll build this package here. I'm already in my examples. My mini examples are Zarf package create. We'll create this package real quick and we'll actually look at the SBOM for this package. So part of all of this processing here is we're grabbing metadata, we're grabbing all the SBOMs available for these packages, putting that into the Zarf package itself, available for your downstream clusters. You can see here the image, and then also signing the entire package ourselves that can also be verified downstream. So if I do a Zarf package inspect, pass it either a -- SBOM or just a -s, then it will actually give me, and the package, it'll give me the SBOM information included. We'll just open that real quick. Copy. One second, I'm just finding my browser window. Oh. My keyboard's a little off. I had to switch my backup keyboard because I knocked an entire quart of electrolytes onto my keyboard and desk today. So here we have our Zarf image SBOM viewer with the various images that are here, along with the provenance made available in those packages repositories. So Alpine here, we can see what files are part of that, as well as who the maintainer information. Oops. So we see Alpine, BusyBox. That's a little sad. Nothing there. Then Minio. You can see who was involved there. And some of these we don't have maintainer information because it's an RPM. It's not an OCI. It's not an OCI image. And that leads me to where we're going. So I'm going to go back to my slide deck. We'll talk about where we're going with Zarf. So right now, like I said, we pull for OCI image registry signatures, or sorry, SBOMs. We also SBOM the package that's also verifiable downstream. And then coming soon, and if you want to see this for yourself, you can just go out to the Zarf, the GitHub Defense Unicorn Zarf, look at the issues, and just filter for the SBOM label. So anything that we're thinking about in the SBOM world, what we're going to develop next, and these are actually pretty high up on our backlog, is to be able to include full attestation, as well as for not just images, but for any binary. So RPMs, for example, if there's a SBOM available for it, we'll be able to ingest that, include in the package, so you can actually make decisions about your software in production, not just against container images, but against any type of binary. That way, looking at one of our SBOMs, let's say one of the maintainers goes rogue or goes black hat, or we find out that their private key was stolen and a bunch of really bad things were signed with their key. We can now, as an industry, go, use our policy engines, update our policy engines to look for code written signed with a certain key, and go in and say, okay, let's double check everything signed with that key between this date where we know, this person's key was stolen and today. That's the goal for the future. So let me ask any questions. Feel free to unmute or to send in the chat. I'm actually going to open up the chat now. See if I can find it. Where'd my chat go? Oh, there it is. Too many buttons. All right, any plans to use Witness, Testify Sec for SBOM? Jeff said, under the hood, we did use Witness at one point to wrap SIFT, but now use it directly to move faster. The long-term plan is to not choose a particular attestation tool, but support multiple. And so any other questions, either in chat or feel free to speak up. All right. So if you want to get in touch with us, again, we are on the Zarf channel in the Kubernetes Slacks. It's the one that is operated by the CNCF. You can go there via slack.kubernetes.io. Look us up on LinkedIn and Twitter, Defense Unicorns. And then if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm at JVB on the CNCF Kubernetes Slack and on several other Slacks of CNCF projects throughout the industry. I'm former Rancher Lab, so when I was involved there, I got into a lot of Slacks. Also on Twitter. Feel free to hit me up directly. My DMs are open if you have any questions. And on Twitch, Jason Van Brackle. Again, when I'm putting together things like today's demo, or I'm just testing out and experimenting, I'll often do it on Twitch. I interact, take questions, like to interact with the community that way live, and eventually those will be Will C said, will you create a program like the ranch hands for Zarf? So I'll answer that in a second. But yeah, feel free to hit me up on Twitch anytime. I'm going to be putting together a schedule for when I broadcast. Right now, I'm just trying to get into a groove of doing this regularly, working release notes, getting a few flywheels going before I commit to a regular broadcast schedule. But that will be soon. So feel free to follow me there, get notifications. If you haven't already, go to GitHub, into the Zarf project, hit the star, let me know you're here. With that, if you want to connect with Zarf directly, again, the Zarf channel out on the Kubernetes Slack, or zarf.dev, or github.com/defenseunicorn/Zarf. And remember, in the chat at the very top, Courtney put a link up to the Gather. A few of us will be hanging out there. And if you'd like a t-shirt, just walk up to me or Courtney. And if you want one of the Oxalotl Zarf t-shirts, we'll be hanging out there if you have any further questions. And I will see you again in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about some of the new features in Zarf 0.20, including a walkthrough of the new Zarf UI. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate you being here. Hope to see you over in Gather.